Today, I'm going to give you a quick rundown of the top 3 deck lists that helped me find my way back to Infinite this season, with the final deck list netting me over 100 of the 200 cubes I needed to climb back to the top rank in Marvel Snap, and it's composed entirely of Series 3 cards. If you want to see these decks in action after listening to these quick deck techs in this video, I'm going to link full gameplay highlights with each of them in the video description down below. Let's go ahead and get right to it, shall we? Our first deck list here checks a lot of the boxes you want to be checking in this format, and that is good play into some of the best interactive cards in the format, Shang-Chi and Leech. This deck plays around Shang-Chi by putting a lot of big numbers into play without having individually large stat lines. We accomplish this with varying ongoing effects such as Patriot and Blue Marvel to buff our board as we go wide, and then Iron Man to be able to double our stats in a single spot without putting huge numbers there. We have Mystique to supplement these 3 powerful ongoing cards, giving us an added copy of any of their individual effects, and we top off all of these things with an interactive disruptive card in Valkyrie. Valkyrie can cut down opposing Red Skulls that have been shuried out to size, but she also raises the stats on our base low power things like Mystique and Iron Man and Patriot. Now, one of the things Valkyrie tends to struggle with in this format is counterplay in things like Arrow, but thankfully this deck is able to go wide with things like Squirrel Girl as well as Mysterio to make it so Valkyrie can't really be moved around in those final moments because we're typically filling in our board. Leech is something that this deck doesn't have too hard of a time with because Patriot is going to buff up any of our cards that have their ability stripped out, so you want to make sure you're playing this card out proactively in the early turns of the game if you suspect you are playing against a Leech deck. The second deck that helped me climb to Infinite this season is one of the most difficult I've had to play in Marvel Snap, but also one of the most satisfying when you get it right, and that is the Beast Bounce deck. So Beast here, as well as Falcon, are unique in their effects currently that they return cards that we have in play to our hand. We utilize this effect to profit in a few different ways. To start, we have cards such as Bishop and Angela that get bigger whenever cards are played out. So we play out our cards, we pick them up, we play them back out again, increasing the stat lines on these 2 threats. And the cards that we're picking up and playing back out constantly have various effects that are either disruptive to our opponent in Korg, Iceman, and Black Widow, or they're generating us additional large stats that we're looking to put into play, such as the Demon. Tying the room all together in this deck is definitely Bast. On reveal, set the power of all cards in our hand to 3. This kicks up the stat lines on basically everything in our deck a pretty significant amount. Most notably, the interaction with Mysterio is quite powerful, though. When you Bast Mysterio, Mysterio and both of the clones all become 3 power, meaning that you get 9 stats for just 2 energy, and that's even before you account for the fact that Mysterio is triggering Bishop 3 times and occasionally triggering Angela as well, meaning a single Mysterio can account for 14 points worth of stats in this deck. Darkhawk is the final big threat that this deck is looking to leverage, gaining additional stats not only from Bast, but by the rocks that Korg is putting into our opponent's deck, as well as the cards that Black Widow is denying them to draw. Finally, we have America Chavez at the top end of our deck here, just this big consistent stat stick to draw on the final turn, while also making our earlier turns much more consistent. Finally, the deck list that I can attribute a majority of my success to laddering up with this season, accounting for over 100 of the cubes on my trek back to Infinite, is Series 3 She-Hulk Double Up. This deck is one of my absolutely favorite kind to play in Marvel Snap. It is a deck that's looking to leverage Moon Girl here to duplicate low-cost, high-power cards in our hand, allowing us to flood the board in the final moments of the game in a way that's very unpredictable for our opponent to keep up with, having good cube equity as we're often able to catch people by surprise. She-Hulk is one of the cards that we're looking to double up. If we pass on turn 5, she can be a 1 energy, 10 power play on turn 6. Titania is a 1 energy energy 5 power play, and the demon generated by our hood is a 1 energy 6 power play. Quinjet is quintessential to this deck's biggest and most explosive turns, making our demons completely free and reducing the cost of any cards that Moon Girl has generated by 1. One thing that I absolutely love about this deck is its resiliency to common metagame threats. We have armor that can protect us against things like Killmonger and Shang-Chi, and the fact that we're just playing a bunch of low energy, high power cards like Titania and Demon gives us an incredible amount of resiliency to both Leech and Arrow, because we're not only flooding the board, but we're just putting out stat lines that don't really care about their abilities. Rounding out the last couple of slots, we have a few disruptive elements here in Goose to control where our opponent can play out to the board, Polaris to kind of move around things that our opponent has already put down, and finally Juggernaut that does kind of a mini Arrow impersonation of our own, letting us play him out on the final turn of the game alongside multiple 1 energy plays, controlling what our opponent is doing while also putting into play an incredible mess of stats for ourselves. If you're looking for a fantastic deck, especially one that's Series 3 only, I cannot recommend this deck enough. It keeps up with things in this format, even like Thanos. If you want to see some more of these 3 deck lists in action, I've got links in the video description down below to full deck highlights with each of them that I posted here in the last week or so. Also, consider dropping by my live stream at twitch.tv/Jeff Hoagland, where I'm broadcasting Marvel Snap and other things from 9 a.m. Central till about 3 p.m. Central, Monday through Friday, 5 days a week. As always, I appreciate everybody that made it through the end of the video. If you enjoyed my musings here today, snap that like button. Hopefully, we'll see you back again real soon for some more content here on YouTube.